This is the story of a special bird called One Leg. She had one fully working leg, and the other leg was basically half a leg with a nub at the end of the equivalency of a knee. So it was half a leg, and she would often prop herself up with the, the nub, and she would often bob up and down, perched on the feeder. And that's where I would see her a lot of times, is at the feeder getting seeds, and she'd often run off with a peanut, fly off, and it was pretty cute. Can't remember the first time I actually saw her, but I thought she had a nest in the front yard, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure if she ever had a mate or not, but she was a unique bird because of her one leg, and she had a little bit more red on her breast than a normal female. And that's how I was able to tell her apart from other birds. And it's the only bird I ever named because usually you can't really tell the difference between birds unless there's a distinguishing individual unique mark on them. So that was her mark, was her one leg and her red breast. So I would often feed her and see her every day, and I would be like, "Oh, that's one leg." So the other day, Tuesday, April 5th, I saw two of my dogs looking at something on the ground, and I was wondering what that was, and was a little concerned. There might be something out there, maybe a mole or something, and ran out there, and one of the dogs had it in its mouth, and I went down there to protect it, and it looked like a baby bird because it was just wet looking, I guess from the saliva of the dogs biting it and playing around with it. And so I thought it was a baby bird, but it was too early in the season. It was early April, which is quite early. That would be a little bit too early for any baby birds to be born normally. And so I noticed it was a cardinal because of its orange beak. All this bird could do was make a noise from its, cut that. So it was missing its flight feathers, most of its flight feathers, nearly all, and it didn't have a tail, any tail feathers, and it was very helpless and pitiful and sad, and I empathized greatly, and I protected it from the dogs. And yes, it was one leg. I found out later. I couldn't really tell at first when I was down there, but this was one leg. And because of its one leg, it couldn't really move around very much. So it could basically turn its head and squawk and make a noise for defense. So with those two big Great Danes that were out there, I didn't have a choice but to take my jacket off and put her in it. I covered her, and then I scooped her up and took her into the garage and put her in a box and let her be, and took a flashlight and saw what was going on with her. I called Walden's Puddle, which is a rehabilitation for wildlife, and called them, and I put some peanuts and some sunflower seeds in there in the box, and it was basically moving around with what flight feathers it had. That's the only way it was able to turn, was with its flight feathers. And I just didn't know how badly it was hurt, but it looked like there was some blood matted. About 15 to 30 minutes later, she passed when I went back down to the garage. I bawled quite hard. She basically fell over on her right side, where her leg was a nub, and that was it. It affected me greatly, and I buried her the next day and said a prayer to may her soul have ascended and flown so high. And that's why I changed my YouTube name temporarily to Here One Day, Gone the Next. This bird fought every day and struggled with her one leg. We all struggle every day with something. And this bird fought to the very end to stay alive. I'm just so sad that she's gone. The feeder feels a little bit more empty with her gone. I'll miss seeing her every day at the feeder. I'll always remember her. And as I said when I buried her, I hope her soul ascended and flew so high